I'm going to keep things super simple on the power rankings this week, ranking the Atlantic Division teams by goal differential. And we're also going to preview a big tilt tonight between our Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. Let's get into it, shall we?
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Wednesday, November 22nd, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins your first listen every day. How? Well, it's free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I'm going to update the Atlantic Division power rankings on today's episode, and we will preview tonight's game against the Florida Panthers. A quick programming note. I know it's Thanksgiving tomorrow for my American friends. For me, it's just another Thursday up here in Canada, and I will therefore be recording an episode recapping whatever happens tonight against the Florida Panthers and bringing you all the latest on the black and gold in advance of a busy weekend coming up with a back-to-back Friday and Saturday. Before we get into the power rankings, quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my dad jokes, hockey thoughts at Ian C. McLaren. So in the past, I've done power rankings based on, points, point percentage. Also looked into, even just last week, puck luck, PDO, shooting percentage, save percentages. I thought I would keep it real simple this week and just look at what's actually happened on the ice in terms of goals for and against and how that has impacted the standings. Bottom team in the Atlantic, pretty much by any metric, is the Montreal Canadiens. They've lost 4 in a row, 2-7-1 over their past 10 games. 7-9-2 through 18 games. That's 16 points, a .444 point percentage, and they have by far the worst goal differential in the Atlantic at -14. In fact, that is second worst in the Eastern Conference as a whole. Only the lowly Columbus Blue Jackets have a worse goal differential. They're at -19. Not even close to the worst in the NHL, though. If you can believe it, the San Jose Sharks are at -49. They've only scored 27 goals and they've allowed 76. Just one of the worst NHL teams in memory. But when it comes to the Atlantic, Montreal, they had been playing pretty well. They were withstanding the loss of Kirby Dach. They beat the Bruins not too long ago, but Boston came back and thumped them this past Saturday, and I don't expect the Canadiens to rise out of 8th in the Atlantic anytime soon. Now, one team that was supposed to be good this season, supposed to be challenging for a playoff spot, was the Buffalo Sabres. They've gotten off to a pretty bad start. They're 8-9-1 through 18 games, 17 points, .472 point percentage. Remember, when we talk about teams being 500, that means they've earned the same amount of points as games played. So at least 1 point earned per game, basically. And that's 50% of all available points they have earned. So Buffalo, they've earned only 47.2% of possible points this season. they were supposed to be a dynamic offense, which they were last season. They were one of the top scoring teams in the NHL. And they're still kind of up there. Well, not even really. They rank. Where the heck are they? 25th in goals for the season at 2.83. That's a big drop off from last year when they ranked third at 3.57. They've had some injuries. Tage Thompson is out. So the offense has taken a dip, and the defense hasn't really been there either. They have allowed 57 goals. That is seventh ranked, 3.62 goals per game. Actually, that was last season. So their defense wasn't very good last season. And when it comes to this season, things aren't much better. They are at 3.17. So some improvement defensively. But still, they have the second worst goal differential in the Atlantic at -6. And that will put them in 7th place this week in the power rankings. And that's where they are in terms of point percentage as well. Now, there's one other team that is a negative goal differential in the Atlantic. And it might be hard to believe, but it's the Tampa Bay Lightning, the team that the Bruins coughed up a lead to the other night. And we broke down that game on yesterday's podcast. They do have a winning record, 9-6-4, 579 point percentage, but a -1 goal differential. That's the result of a couple shutouts last week, back-to-back shutouts, and also missing Andrei Vasilevsky. Their offense is top ranked in the Atlantic. They've scored 68 goals through 19 games. Most in the Atlantic, more than the Maple Leafs at 62 goals, the Red Wings at 61, our Bruins are at 60. But they've also allowed a division-high 69 goals against, and that's giving them a -1 goal differential. Andrei Vasilevsky coming back will certainly help to balance that out or put things more in Tampa's favor. But at the moment, goal differential, this team is 6th ranked in the Atlantic, and that's where we're putting them this week. They've won 3 games, but until Vasilevsky comes back and until they can show that they can slow down the opposition, I'm not too worried about the Tampa Bay Lightning, despite the fact that they beat the Bruins the other night. Now, the 5th ranked team in terms of goal differential, another surprise, and that is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I should add, Tampa, Toronto right now are tied for 3rd in terms of points. Toronto has the advantage in point percentage, but these two teams are very vulnerable, as seen in the goal differentials. Toronto's just at +3. They have won 4 in a row, but they've had issues on the blue line, issues in net, and that's really where you win in today's NHL, by having strong goaltending and strong team defense. That's why the Bruins are where they are right now, and we'll get to them here later on in the podcast. But in terms of goal differential right now, your bottom teams are Montreal, Buffalo, Tampa Bay, and Toronto. And we'll discuss the top 4 teams in the Atlantic by way of goal differential here as the podcast continues. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities, and you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number 1 choice for daily fantasy sports, especially fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, Linus Ullmark will record more or less on their Sleeper projections for goals, assists, or saves. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. Use promo code LOCKDOWNNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKDOWNNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for functionality and location availability. But get 100 times your bet playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. Start paying attention and nail your picks. You can score this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. And it's not just for football. You can get in with NHL, NBA, and the like. And for example, tonight, the Bruins-Panthers, the over-under is set at 6.5 goals. So you can go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, get in on the action, put something down on that over-under. And their app is so easy to use. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. Thanks again for making Locked On Bruins part of your day. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow with a full recap of tonight's game against the Florida Panthers. Next, I encourage you to check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. They've got you covered with all the top stories, and all you have to do is go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Moving on with our power rankings this week, and we are ranking the teams in the Atlantic by goal differential. A couple surprising teams in the bottom 4. Toronto, just at +3 for the season. The Tampa Bay Lightning, -1. I saw a tweet or an X or whatever they're called these days this morning saying Vasilevsky was on the ice for morning skate, not in the starter's net yet, but he should be back very soon. And that should make the Lightning stronger defensively and help them move up in the standings, where they are tied for 3rd in points at the moment, 4th in point percentage. In 4th place this week, with a +4 goal differential, is the Detroit Red Wings. Red Wings. They're 3-5-2 over their last 10, which isn't great, but +4 goal differential. They have a 3-headed monster in net, which I don't love because I have Ville Husso on one of my fantasy teams. I'd really like for him to come back and play better. I believe Alex Lyon is getting the start tonight, and we'll see if Husso or James Reimer is in the mix as well for Friday's game. But +4 goal differential. You know, this team started out very hot. They're still in playoff contention, I guess. They're 3 points back of Tampa Bay, but with 2 games in hand. So that's probably going to be the team to try to catch at the moment. Tampa does seem a bit vulnerable, but I think at the end of the day, we're going to see the top 4 shake out similarly, despite these goal differentials at the moment. We have a tie for 2nd in goal differential. The Ottawa Senators have won 3 in a row, and they're a +8. They've allowed only 49 goals, which is tied for 2nd with Florida. In fact, they each have the same amount of goals for and the same amount of goals against. 57 for, 49 against, for a +8 goal differential. Senators have won 3 in a row, and we'll see if they are kind of jumping over the Sabres for what was meant to be perhaps a playoff push this season. Now, Ottawa's only 8-7, .533 point percentage, which puts them down in 6th in that regard. But goal differential, they're right there with the Florida Panthers in second place. Panthers have the better record, though, so I'm putting them above Ottawa. They're 8-2 over their last 10 games. They've won 2 in a row. They're 7-1 at home, which will be a factor in tonight's game for sure. They have a .694 point percentage, 12-5-1, and they're certainly a very dangerous team. And that was prior to the return of Brandon Montour, Aaron Ekblad. They just returned late last week, and that's just going to make them even better. So I really do think the Panthers are the team to fend off at the moment for the Bruins, the team to beat. Of course, right now they would not be matched up in the first round. Thankfully, at this point, the Bruins would be taking on the Carolina Hurricanes, who beat them in the playoffs a couple years ago. So tonight's going to be a big test, and we'll preview that one later on in this episode. That leaves the Bruins at plus 23 in terms of goal differential, which is by far the best in the Atlantic. Ottawa, Florida at plus 8. In fact, Boston is second in the NHL at the moment. Only the Vancouver Canucks have a better goal differential. They're at plus 32. Boston's plus 23, followed by the Kings and the Golden Knights. The second best team in the East is the New York Rangers, and they're at plus 15. So Boston, much better than any other Atlantic team in terms of goal differential, and they got a big advantage in the Eastern Conference as well with 3 big games on tap. They're playing those Rangers this weekend. They got the Red Wings on Friday, and then tonight they're taking on the Florida Panthers, and we'll preview that game as the podcast continues. This time of year can be a lot for people, and it's natural to feel some sadness or anxiety about it. But adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all the stress and change, something to look forward to make you feel grounded, and to give you the tools to manage everything that is going on. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. For your bright spot this season, get BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnhl today to get $10 off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnhl. All right, we have a massive game on deck tonight as our Boston Bruins are in Florida to take on the Panthers, with the dads in town as well to take in this one. Looks like yesterday they did some gliding through the Everglades, which looked pretty fun, but back down to business today as the Bruins take on the Panthers, looking to build off an earlier season 3-2 overtime decision over the team that bounced them from the postseason. Both teams coming in hot here. Panthers are 8-2 over their last 10. They've won 2 in a row. The Bruins are 7-1-2 in that span, having lost in overtime to the Lightning in Tampa on Monday. In terms of players to watch in this one, Sam Reinhart, super hot, 4 goals, 4 assists for 8 points over his last 5 games. He leads the Panthers in scoring with 25 points in 18 games, 13 goals, 12 assists. Always seems to come up big against the Bruins. Barkov did not play the previous game. I'm not sure if he's ready to come back tonight, but Matthew Tkachuk off to a bit of a slow start. He's only got 3 goals. He's looking for a breakout. Let's hope it does not come tonight. Carter Verhaeghe, always dangerous. Evan Rodrigues is playing very good. They've got Anton Lundell, who's looking to break out. And then, of course, on the back end, Aaron Ekblad, Brandon Montour have both played 2 games. They're looking to get their first points of the season as well. So Always a very, very dangerous team. Sergei Bobrovsky likely getting the start in this one. He's 9-4-1 with a .906 save percentage. The Bruins deviated from their goalie rotation, giving Swayman back-to-back starts recently. So look for Linus Ullmark to be back in net. 6-1-1 with a .928 save percentage so far this season. David Pastrnak, red hot with 12 points over his last 5 games, including 9 assists. We'd like to see him get that goal scoring back. Charlie Coyle leads the way with 4 over the last 5 games, although 3 of those came in one game, of course. Special teams, always a talking point. Bruins, first ranked penalty kill. Florida's is 23rd ranked. And same with their power play. Bruins is 11th ranked. So if the Bruins can stay out of the box and make good on their opportunities, then they should be all right tonight. Bruins also first in terms of fewest goals allowed per game this season, 2.18. Florida's pretty good too, 2.72. And again, a lot of that was without Ekblad and Montour. So again, if you're looking at the over-under 6.5, we could be looking at like a 4-2 game here. So I personally will be taking the under. It's a TNT game, nationally televised, huge rematch between the Bruins and the Panthers after, well, they've already played once this season, but of course it's I'd say a burgeoning rivalry. There's no love lost between these two clubs, especially after how things went in the playoffs. Matthew Tkachuk, always willing to mix it up. But they have some other guys as well. Ryan Lomberg, we know, is not well liked among the Bruins. So we could see some chippiness in this one as well. I'm very excited to check it out. And we'll be watching here tonight with a full recap on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins. It's a pretty busy night around the NHL with 14 games on the schedule, I believe, after 0 last night. It was a weird, quirky thing where there was only a few buildings available because of the NBA in-season tournament. Oilers Hurricanes is another one to watch tonight. Devils Red Wings, a couple of top teams in the East. Rangers Penguins, always fun to watch. What else is there on tap tonight? Golden Knights versus the Stars will be a great game. Later on to watch, Canucks Avalanche, probably the game of the night with 2 top teams out west. Anyways, that's it for today's episode, my friends. Thank you so much for taking some time to join me today. I hope you are all doing well and looking forward to the holiday. If Thanksgiving's not really your thing, well, you can count on me being here tomorrow to talk about our Boston Bruins, and happy to keep the conversation going about the black and gold, because that's what we do here on Locked On Boston Bruins, your team every day. Locked On Podcast Network. Get into it. Subscribe. Whatever team you follow, Patriots, Red Sox, Celtics as well. Jump on board. No better time. It's a free subscription. Gift it to your family and friends this holiday season.